Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before starting the video, please subscribe and keep watching for more details videos. Coco Gauff's former coach says players should never be allowed to do what Daniil Medvedev did versus Corentin Moutet in DC. Brad Gilbert has suggested that tennis players should never be allowed to do one thing, which Daniil Medvedev has just done in his match against Corentin Moutet. With the two meeting in the quarterfinals of the Washington Open, there was plenty at stake between two wildly unpredictable players seeking to put together a run of form. However, when the 2021 U.S. Open champion rushed into a one-set lead, the result seemed a foregone conclusion. Alas, the unpredictability of Daniil Medvedev's form made him an easy target for a turnaround upset, which is exactly what Moutet engineered. He claimed the result with one of the most ridiculous match points in recent memory, as the two exchanged volleys, lobs, drop shots, and deep ground strokes. And yet, it was what Medvedev did mid-match that really caught Gilbert's eye. Brad Gilbert insists tennis must make a rule change. As a former coach of Coco Gauff's and Andre Agassi's once upon a time, his opinion on tennis is invaluable, whether that be on what a player needs to improve or the wider concerns within the sport. His analytical approach makes him a pundit always worth listening to. However, his claim, which he posted on X, was more of a reactionary feeling after he watched Medvedev take a medical timeout midway through a service game with the scores at 2-4, 15-15 in the second set. Gilbert took issue with this, and even went as far as to suggest that, if a player has to do this, they should forfeit the game. Medvedev's exit marks a missed opportunity at Washington after seeds like Taylor Fritz, Lorenzo Musetti, and Francis Tiafoe all lost. Daniil Medvedev's tough 2025 continues. Just when it seemed like Medvedev was getting his mojo back, he has once again been dealt an upset. It seems to be becoming something of a theme, with the Russian having endured so many false dawns of late. 2025 in general, though, has not been anywhere near good enough for the former world number one. He is yet to get past the second round at any of the 3 Grand Slams played thus far, with his last title at any level coming midway through 2023. This is a drought that is showing no signs of ending either, given how poor his year has been. Washington marked a great opportunity for Medvedev to end that barren run by reaching the semifinals, with Moutet, on paper, being a player who should not have troubled him. And yet, despite being a set-up, he conspired to lose yet another match that few would have expected him to. Sadly, these upsets are becoming rather commonplace for the 29-year-old. In the sweltering summer heat of Washington, D.C., where tempers can boil as quickly as sweat trickles down an athlete's back, a firestorm ignited not from the racket, but from the lips of Daniil Medvedev. It was supposed to be a straightforward early-round match at the City Open, one of the key warm-up events before the U.S. Open. Russian star and former world number one Daniil Medvedev was taking on the always unpredictable Frenchman Corentin Moutet. But what unfolded became the most talked-about moment of the tournament, not for the level of tennis, but for an outburst that lit up the tennis world with debate, controversy, and a sharp rebuke from one of the sport's respected figures. Brad Gilbert, Coco Gauff's former coach and a seasoned analyst of tennis behavior and ethics. The match that turned into a meltdown. It began competitively enough. Medvedev, known for his quirky antics and offbeat demeanor, was up against a crafty opponent in Moutet, whose flamboyant style has often earned him both praise and criticism. The match saw flashes of brilliance from both players, drop shots, rallies that spun like tops, and moments of brilliance that had the crowd gasping. But then, midway through the second set, the match took a sharp left turn. Frustrated by a line call that went against him, Medvedev erupted. He hurled his racket toward the advertising board, barked at the umpire, and then, in a moment that would become viral within minutes, directed an expletive-laden tirade in Russian, some of it reportedly aimed at Moutet, and some at the umpire. The language was harsh, the body language even worse. Medvedev looked like a man unraveling on court. Moutet, never one to back down from a verbal confrontation, gestured back, clearly incensed. For a few tense seconds, it felt like tennis might dissolve into chaos. The umpire issued a warning, but no point penalty was given. The match continued. Medvedev eventually won in 3 sets, but the post-match handshakes were icy, and the press room buzzed with one question: Had Daniil gone too far? Enter Brad Gilbert, the voice of reason or reprimand. Within hours of the match's dramatic ending, ESPN analyst and former coach of Coco Gauff, Brad Gilbert, took to social media, and then the press, with a firm and unwavering stance. What Daniil Medvedev did on that court should never be allowed, Gilbert said during a segment on ESPN. It's not just about the shouting or the racket throw. It's about the message it sends. If a top player can scream profanities, threaten another player, and walk away with just a warning, what does that tell the juniors watching at home? Gilbert's words struck a chord. He continued, "Tennis is a game of discipline. We've all had our moments. I've seen McEnroe, I've seen Kyrgios, and I've seen Serena at her most passionate. But there's a difference between passion and outright disrespect. What Medvedev did crossed that line." As someone who guided Coco Gauff during some of her most formative professional months, Gilbert's words carried extra weight. He was part of the team that helped mold Coco's poise, even under pressure, her fierce on-court demeanor tempered with emotional maturity. If that were Coco or any young American player acting that way, the media would be tearing them apart, Gilbert added bluntly. And I'd be the first to sit them down and say, "We don't do that here." A deeper issue in tennis? The incident sparked a broader conversation across the tennis community. Is the ATP doing enough to regulate player behavior? Is there a double standard between top-seeded stars and up-and-coming players? Gilbert thinks so. Look, if this was a qualifier ranked 120 in the world, they'd be fined, maybe defaulted. But we let the big names get away with it. That has to stop. Tennis can't be afraid to discipline its own, he said. Social media split like a backhand down the line. Some fans supported Medvedev, calling it human, and even relatable. A burst of real emotion in a sport often criticized for being too rigid. Others, echoing Gilbert, called for fines, suspensions, or stricter umpire accountability. Former players chimed in too. Andy Roddick tweeted, "I love Daniil's game, but this ain't it. Gotta do better." Meanwhile, Matet's camp released a short statement. "We expect the ATP to apply the rules consistently, regardless of ranking." Coco Gauff's quiet example. In the background of all this drama stands Coco Gauff herself, poised, focused, and currently preparing for the Canadian Open. Gilbert took the opportunity to contrast her attitude with what he called a growing tolerance for chaos. Coco's faced her share of pressure, even at 15. Heckled by crowds, tough calls, rain delays, you name it, Gilbert said. She channels it. You don't see her smashing rackets or screaming at the chair umpire. That's not an accident. That's what we taught her. That's the example we should hold up. Indeed, Gauff has earned praise not just for her shot-making, but for her leadership. She's used her platform to speak on issues beyond the court, from racial justice to mental health, always with maturity beyond her years. When asked if Gauff had seen the Medvedev outburst, Gilbert simply replied, "I don't think she'd waste her time." The ATP's response, or lack thereof. In the days following the controversy, the ATP issued a short statement. Player conduct is taken seriously, and we are reviewing the incident involving Daniil Medvedev. No fines were immediately announced. No suspensions. The video continued to circulate online, becoming a trending topic under hashtags like #MedvedevMeltdown and #TennisCode. Fans began comparing the situation to other recent incidents, including fines levied against lower-ranked players for minor outbursts. The inconsistencies were glaring. Meanwhile, Gilbert was not done. He penned a longer op-ed published in the New York Times titled, "Enough is Enough: The Case for Zero Tolerance in Tennis," where he wrote, "Tennis doesn't need to be sanitized, but it does need standards. The line between fire and fury is razor thin, but that doesn't mean we can let it vanish." A call for change. Gilbert's impassioned critique may have lit the fire, but it echoed louder because of who he is, a seasoned coach who's worked with the likes of Andre Agassi, Andy Roddick, and more recently, Coco Gauff. His reputation is one of fairness, discipline, and player development. "You don't have to be perfect," he said in a final interview, "but you have to be accountable. Medvedev is one of the best we've got. If he doesn't uphold the sport's values, who will?" Whether Medvedev responds with an apology, a fine, or silence remains to be seen. But the conversation isn't going away. Not when young fans are watching. Not when legends like Gilbert refuse to stay silent. And not when the spotlight of tennis, now brighter than ever, reveals the cracks in the court's foundation. As Coco Gauff prepares for her next battle in Montreal, she's not just carrying the hopes of American tennis. She's carrying the example of what a modern champion should look like. And that, perhaps, is the sharpest contrast of all.